1947, a time of fedoras, coats, and Christian Dior. But most important of all, 1947 is the year that LA Noire takes place in. Yep, nothing else important happened that year. Anyways, LA Noire is a detective action-adventure game developed by Team Bondi and published by Rockstar Games in 2011. Despite selling nearly 5 million copies and getting praised by fans and critics, the game never really got a sequel. That was mainly due to the poor working conditions and the harsh way employees at Team Bondi were treated. I won't go into detail about the development process, as there are many videos on the topic already, but long story short, Team Bondi employees were allegedly sometimes forced to work up to 12 hours a day with lengthy crunch time. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the game itself. The game is set in Los Angeles in the year 1947. It follows Detective Cole Phelps as he rises among the ranks of the Los Angeles Police Department. We start the game off with the Patrol Department. It consists of 4 cases which are kinda like tutorial missions. After the opening cinematic, we are immediately thrown into our first case, Upon Reflection. Here we meet our main protagonist, Cole Phelps, voiced by Aaron Staton, who starred in Narcos Mexico, and his patrol partner Ralph Dunn, voiced by Rodney Scott, who starred in NCIS. At the crime scene, we meet with homicide detective Floyd Rose and his partner Rusty Galloway. A black male named Scooter Payton was shot down the alleyway. Cole and Ralph are sent in to investigate the crime scene. Here we get introduced to LA Noire's crime scene investigation mechanics. Every time Cole walks close to a clue while investigating a crime scene, a little sound effect will play, notifying the player that it's there. These clues will either be important evidence that will help you solve the case or random junk on the floor which won't have any connection to the case. Partners can also find clues. If they find something interesting, they will call Phelps to take a look. During a case, all evidence found will be saved inside of Cole's notebook. At the end of the alleyway, we find blood splatter stains and a reflection of a pistol on the rooftop. We climb up the pipe to reach the pistol, and here we get introduced to the game's evidence inspection mechanics. Cole will hold the evidence in his hand, and by either using the mouse or WASD keys, he will start rotating the item in order to find out more details about it. When the item contains additional information, the game will play a soft chime, indicating that further examination is required. We head over to the gun store where the pistol was bought from and look through their purchase ledger. I like to call this next mechanic Cole's finger tap. By either using the mouse or WASD, we move Cole's finger through the ledger and tap with the left mouse button. If you find the right guy, you get to continue the case. If not, you just look like an idiot tapping a book with your finger. We find the buyer's address and head over to his apartment. On the way there, I tried opening the map and navigating my way through the city. It didn't really go so well. Upon arriving, we get into our first fistfight with our suspect, Earl Schroeder. The fistfight system in this game is decent, but gets repetitive because of the simple controls and combos. Right click to get into a fighting position, left click to attack, hold space to block, press space right before an enemy attacks to dodge, and Q to perform a grapple attack. Basic stuff. We knock him out and send him to jail. Knockout! Now we get a flashback cinematic. These flashbacks occur throughout the whole game. These cinematics tell the story of Cole Phelps while he was in the 6th Marines, fighting in Okinawa against the Japanese in World War II. They give us important backstory on the relationships between Cole and the other members. This first flashback shows us Cole when he first arrived for OCS, or Officer Candidate Training. Him and Jack Kelso, voiced by Gil McKinney, get yelled at by this guy. I don't really know who he is. This next case is just an introduction to the shooting system and guns in this game. There are 4 usable weapon types in this game: fists, pistols, submachine guns, shotguns, and rifles. Cole always has a pistol on him with infinite ammo. He can take guns from enemy corpses, however, these do not have infinite ammo. Once you pick up a gun, you can't switch back to the pistol for some reason, until the gun runs out of ammo. This system is surprisingly boring. Seeing as this game was developed by Rockstar Games, I expected a lot more from the guys that made Rockstar Games Presents Table Tennis.
China to serve.
After we finish the shootout scene, we get another flashback cinematic. This one shows an argument between Cole and Kelso. Jack sees this as just a war, nothing else, nothing more. Cole sees this as an opportunity that he has to grasp. He sees this as his time to shine and his chance to make a name for himself. Now this next case is all about the chasing mechanic, and believe me, it is nothing to get excited about. LA Noire doesn't have a jump button, so this whole chasing system consists of holding down W and moving left or right sometimes. We chase down our suspect, whose name is Wendell Bowers, but he gets the jump on Cole, forcing him into another fistfight.
Looks like we've got the place to ourselves.
We give Bowers the old knuckle sandwich and send him to the slammer. This third flashback shows us Cole giving out ratings to all the different tasks in the OCS. Jack Kelso has the lowest rating in all the training tasks. Kelso stands up and starts an argument and then gets yelled at by another person I don't know the name of. This is our first real case of the game, you could say. While patrolling the streets, Cole hears multiple gunshots and runs towards the sound. He shows up to the scene of the crime, where he finds Everett Gage dead on the sidewalk in front of his own store. We inspect the body, and I won't lie, these inspection controls are already getting annoying. The mouse is too fast and WASD is a bit slow, forcing me to use both. Anyways, we inspect the body, and then we get introduced to the interrogation mechanics. Cole will whip out his notebook with questions. Once you ask a question and the suspect gives an answer, the game will let you decide whether they are telling the truth or not. You get 3 options to judge a suspect's truthfulness: truth, doubt, and lie. When you think the suspect is telling the truth, you select truth, obviously. If you think they are lying and you have the evidence to back it up, you select lie. If you think a suspect is withholding the truth or lying about something you don't have the evidence to disprove them on, select doubt. This mechanic is very important and can lead to you failing the case if you mess it up. Anyways, we interrogate our first suspect, Clovis Galeta, the store clerk. She reveals the identity of our main suspect, Edgar Caillou. Outside the store we find shell casings and an FN Browning 1922. We go over to Hartfield's jewelry store to locate the suspect, running over a poor person's briefcase on the way there. We find Caillou, who first pretends to be someone else, and then makes a run for it. Cole chases after him in a different kind of chase, where you have to apprehend the suspect by holding your crosshair on him for a short period. We arrest Caillou and take him to the police station, where we have to interrogate him. I absolutely ace the interrogation process, as I am very skilled at this game. After we finish the interrogation, we get promoted to the traffic department. We say goodbye to Ralph and get introduced to our new partner, Stefan Bukowski. Before we continue, here's a quick explanation of the cases and departments in this game. The game consists of 5 departments: patrol, traffic, homicide, administrative vice, and arson. In total, there are 26 cases. The patrol cases are kind of like tutorial cases, while the rest of the departments have actual cases. Anyways, like I said, we meet Stefan, voiced by Sean McGowan, who also starred in NCIS. We also meet Vice Detective Roy Earl, remember this guy, and Captain Gordon Leary. On the way to our first location, I decided to do a quick street crime. These are basically side missions, or in other words, useless crimes you probably won't ever do. The crime is a simple armed robbery. We shoot the robber, definitely didn't miss a shot right there, and get back to the real case. An abandoned car at the PE Freight Depot. The car is full of blood, there's also a wallet, and the victim's name, Adrian Black, and the bloody steel pipe. We go to the supposed victim's house, interrogate the wife, and find a newspaper, which starts a cutscene, showing a doctor, whose name is Harlan Fontaine, drugging a patient who seems to be mentally ill. Next we go to Kavanaugh's bar, the supposed victim's favorite bar. You get what I'm trying to get at here? At the bar, we interview Adrian's friend, Frank Morgan. After leaving the bar, we follow Frank back to his apartment in Rockstar's perfectly designed tailing missions. At his apartment, we find Adrian Black, alive and fully healthy. Yep, he faked his own death to get away from his wife, to meet a new woman out of town. I see LA has some of the smartest criminals out there. We arrest Adrian and send him to the big house. Before we move on, this case is named Driver's Seat. Funnily enough, you don't have to drive for 90% of the game. By holding down E, you can force your partner to drive. Rockstar actually let you skip driving in one of their games. What world are we living in? This feature, although I love it, kind of removes the point of the map for most of the game except for certain cases like the Quarter Moon murders in the homicide desk. Alright, next up, Consul's car. A diplomatic car, stolen and stripped of its wheels and plate. We find it belongs to the Argentinian embassy, and ask the old man who apparently saw the whole thing happen and pretty much did nothing about it. Next, we go to the dealership where the car was bought from. We interview the owner, William Dewey, who kinda looks like the Steven Universe character with the same last name. Am I stretching for this one? Nah. We also find a missing wrench which was probably used to rob the car, belonging to Gabriel Delgado. We head over to Gabriel's house. Of course, he isn't there, so we interview his girlfriend, Ana Rodriguez. We find the missing car parts in his backyard, cause Gabriel is just smart like that, I guess. And we find out he's participating in an illegal street race. In the meantime, the owner of the car had been located and now I am faced with a difficult choice. Police interrogation or illegal street race. Anyways, we go over to the street race and chase down Gabriel in a very cool vehicle chase scene. We arrest him and send him to the joint. Next up, what might be my favorite case in the whole game, a marriage made in heaven. In the opening cinematic, we see a man stumbling on the road. He gets hit by a car and the car drives away. We show up to the scene of the crime. We find a wallet belonging to the victim. We find an insurance letter, which will have no effect on the case whatsoever, and a bloody knife in a nearby trash can. We are led to believe this is just an ordinary kitchen knife, but deep down Cole knows something isn't right here. We interview an eyewitness to the hit-and-run incident, Shannon Perry. She constantly holds back information in hopes her name and picture will end up in the newspaper. Sounds like every LA influencer in 2022. I found another newspaper in the cafe. This one shows us our good friend, Dr. Harland, speaking to one of his patients, Courtney, about the effectiveness of Harland's therapy and treatment. We start to find out that this guy ain't no ordinary doctor. He drugs, lies, and gaslights his patients into believing him. Next up, we go to the victim's house. We investigate the house, and then we interview his wife, Lorna Patterson. The interview gets interrupted by Leroy Sabo, Lorna's secret lover. They basically give no useful information, and we get called over to the central morgue where we find out the big twist in this case. The suspect died from a knife wound and not the actual car collision. We go back to Lorna's house where Lorna gives up on her secret lover very easily when faced with jail time and completely rats him out. He comes in, shoots her dead, and Cole is forced to chase Leroy. He tries to hold a woman hostage, but I shoot him dead with my expert level aim and crosshair control.
Help me!
Funnily enough, the best case in the game is followed by what has to be the worst case in the whole game, a slip of the tongue. This case is so boring and uninteresting that I can't be bothered to go through the whole thing. So I'll just explain it to you in one sentence. A seemingly run-of-the-mill car theft ends up sparking an explosive investigation into the largest auto fraud racket the city has ever seen. Following up the worst case in the game with one of the best, The Fallen Idol. June Ballard, a B-movie actress, and Jessica Hamilton, a wannabe famous actress, drugged, raped, and driven straight into the Hollywood sign. Both survive, so we interview them. June Ballard acts seductive, while Jessica is nervous, knowing she shouldn't be in Hollywood, but desperately wants to become famous. She holds back information, knowing it might get her in trouble and ruin her chances of becoming a famous Hollywood actress. June Ballard drops Mark Bishop as a suspect, so we go over to his apartment. He lives in a very nice building, if I may add. He isn't there, you noticing a pattern here? So we interview his wife. Their apartment had been raided by hitmen trying to find Mark Bishop, so the whole case becomes a race of who can find Mark Bishop first. We interview Marlon Hopgood, a close associate to Mark. He gets saved last second by Roy Earl, remember this guy? Anyways, we're forced to leave, get attacked by mobsters, and then go over to the Jungle Drum set, a movie set for the 1916 silent film Intolerance. This film became the first ever multi-million-dollar box office bomb in film history. With an astronomical budget of almost $2 million, it didn't even manage to make a profit. On the set, we find Mark Bishop. But the set gets raided by mobsters, and we have to keep Mark Bishop alive as we descend the set and kill the mobsters hunting him. This is an actually fun shootout, which is rare for this game if I'm being honest. Anyways, we get off the set, Mark stays alive and well, and we get a nice little promotion to the homicide desk. Saying goodbye to Stefan, who was actually quite a cool partner, we swap him out with Rusty Galloway. Remember him? He's the homicide detective from the first case. His partner Floyd Rose retired and we become his new partner. He's voiced by Michael McGrady, who of course was in NCIS. After the case ends, we meet Elsa Lickman for the first time. Remember her as well. She will become very important later on. She's voiced by Erica Haynatz, who wasn't in NCIS, which makes sense since she doesn't play a detective character. Nothing important happens in the cinematic. She basically just cries, gets slapped by Roy. Are you getting that he's meant to be a bad guy? Has the game not made it obvious enough already? Before we move on to the homicide desk, I have a quick opinion on the traffic department. In short, it's mostly boring and repetitive aside from Marriage Made in Heaven and Fallen Idol. The other cases are repetitive car theft cases that don't offer anything special and are difficult to even differentiate one from another. Anyways, back to homicide. As I said before, our new partner is Rusty Galloway. Unlike the fun and charismatic Stefan Bukowski, Rusty is a sheltered, old, and more experienced cop. He's been in homicide for years and knows he has nothing to prove to anyone. As he mentions more than enough times throughout this department, he has a problem with women. Having gone through multiple divorces in his lifetime, he has a resentment towards them, not feeling any sympathy towards any of the victims in this department, as they are all women. Anyways, on to our first case, the Red Lipstick Murder. This case takes place 6 months after Cole's promotion. The LAPD for over 6 months now has been on the hunt for the Black Dahlia Killer, the serial killer who murdered Elizabeth Short. Cole thinks all the recent cases have links to the Dahlia Killer, while Rusty believes it's just random people trying to imitate him. We arrive to an unpleasant scene. A woman found naked, mutilated, and badly beaten. She has a message written on her with lipstick. Our next stop is the Bomba Club, where we meet with the bartender, Garrett Mason. Remember this guy as well, because I sure didn't. He sends us to talk to the owner, Dick McCall. He gives us a license plate, which gets traced to Alonzo Mendez, who was seen with Celine Henry on the night of the murder. Celine is the victim's name, by the way, believe me, you'll forget their names as the department goes on, it really doesn't matter. Anyways, we go over to her husband's house. We interview him, fight him, then arrest him. Easy work at this point. We find a note in his house, which looks like a threat towards his wife. He wanted her dealt with, but didn't have the courage to do it himself, so he got someone else to do it. We go to Alonzo's apartment, where we find all the evidence linking him to the murder, cause of course the killer would leave all the evidence at his apartment and not dispose of it. Alonzo arrives home, tries to make a run for it, Cole chases after him, and a car chase ensues. Here we learn that other officers actually have guns and are capable of using them, as Rusty demonstrates by shooting out Alonzo's tires.
Put your hands where I can see them! Whoa!
Alrighty, next case, the Golden Butterfly. Another woman found naked, mutilated, and badly beaten. Guys, I think they're creating a pattern here. Her name is Deidre Muller, and what's our first step? We go over to her husband's house and interview her husband. Of course, guys, I think there might be patterns here. Sadly, the husband, Hugo Moeller, isn't there, so we go for the next best thing, the child. In very convenient LA Noire fashion, Hugo arrives right as we finish the interview, so we sit him down and interview him as well. Right after the LAPD detectives leave his house, Hugo Moeller finds this as the appropriate time to start burning evidence that could link him to the murder. I told you, man, LA has the smartest criminals out there. Anyways, we chase him down with this new tackle mechanic. Nice, now I have to hold W and tap left click. This is thrilling gameplay right here, boys. We arrest him, send him to the pen, and then head over to the central morgue. We matched the rope found at the scene of the crime, found this janitor just vibing, and then tackled a pedo on school ground. You know, everyday routine for the LAPD. This guy's name is Eli Rooney. He likes kids. The game makes that very obvious.
You fuck young boys, Valdez.
He's found carrying a golden butterfly ring that belongs to Deidre Muller, so we take him in as well. At the police station, I interview both suspects, or at least I tried to. It didn't really go very well. Right after interviewing Eli, Hugo storms out of the station, hops in a car, and tries to escape. Not a great way to show that you're innocent, Hugo. Goddamn, you're not the smartest. He hits a trolley while trying to escape. His car bounces very weirdly. We arrest him and send him to the toll booth. Upon arriving at the police station, I get absolutely destroyed by the captain. So I learned this after I finished the game, but after every case you get a rating of 1 to 5 stars. If you get a 1 star or a 2 star, you basically get yelled at by the captain or lieutenant. Although it does add a little bit of variety to the post-case cutscene, it doesn't really affect gameplay in any way. It would have been cooler if the game maybe forced you to do some street crimes after completing a case with a low rating. You know, actually give some kind of incentive to complete the street crimes. That way the star system actually makes people play better, and if they do play poorly, they have to do street crimes in order to continue the game. Anyways, after getting yelled at, we get another 6 Marines flashback, showing that unlike many other American soldiers, Cole didn't have any type of hatred towards the Japanese people. He knew it was war, and it was his duty to follow orders and try to win the war for his country. This created a divide between him and his fellow soldiers, which led to most of his squad hating him. In the opening cutscene, we see the captain and Rusty sitting at a downtown cafe. We learned that Rusty's real name is Finbar, and when I looked it up on Google, I found out that that was the name of Jacksepticeye's horse in Minecraft. If you came for important information, sorry, you're on the wrong channel. The captain also says he's happy with the results of the last case. Another reason why the star rating system makes absolutely no sense. Cole and Finbar are sent to another murder scene. Another woman found naked, mutilated, and badly beaten. You know what? I'm not even gonna say anything. At the crime scene, we find a blood trail. Following it, we find a breadcrumb trail of clues. We learn the victim's name is Antonia Maldonado, and we find out her address. She lives in a boarding house, so we speak to the owner, Barbara Lapenti. She throws shade at Antonia's husband, Angel Maldonado, so you know where we're going to next. Angel, of course, starts a fight, loses, and gets arrested. Next we head over to the El Dorado bar, interview the bartender, head over to the police station, interview Angel, but surprisingly we don't sentence him. Instead, we head over to the Just Picked Fruit Market, Angel and Antonia's favorite market, I guess. We speak to the owner, find he's illegally selling alcohol, and find Antonia's jewelry and the weapon used to mutilate her. You already know how the job goes. He tries to run, I fail the chase scene, we arrest him, and we send him to the stir. Another woman murdered. This time, not left naked. I guess that's something. A random woman arrives on the scene and blames a homeless man named Stuart Ackerman, a man who also participated in World War II. He operated a flamethrower. After returning to LA, he went insane and started hating the US government. Ackerman became a leader of a camp of hobos. Among the locals, Ackerman developed a reputation as the hobo leader, his disfigurement, and for assaulting women. We aren't able to find him at the hobo camp, but following a laundry label we found on the victim's corpse, we go over to Superior Laundry, where we look through their ledger. Here we find out the victim's name is Mrs. Tarleton, and we go over to her house. I think you can guess what happens next. We interview her husband, and honestly, his children seem more suspicious than him. Next we go to Baron's bar, because apparently a lot of women love to get blackout drunk at bars. The bartender gives us a cab number, which Tarleton was last seen in. Before we track the number, we chase down another suspect. God damn, he has a big mouth. We interview him and send him to the station. Have you noticed that this is a boring case yet? Back at the station, we interview a sailor, who is also a suspect, and you can already guess he's not our guy. So we go back to the hobo camp, and surprisingly, Ackerman is there. So we beat down the hobos, just an everyday thing in LA, and take Ackerman to the station. In his hobo bunker, we find all the evidence linking him to the case, so you already know what happens next. Ackerman acts suspicious, admits to murdering multiple women, so we send him to the pokes. After we finish the case, Cole goes back to the jazz club. Guys, I think Rockstar is trying to tell us something here, but I can't put my finger on it. Hey guys, guess what this case is about? Yep, you got it. Another dead woman. Man, this Black Dahlia killer sure has a lot of fans. This one, left next to the train tracks, we find out her name is Evelyn. A random pervert apparently tried kissing her dead body, cause that's just what happens in LA, I guess. Rusty smacks him, and then we leave the train station. Wanna guess where we go to next? Surprisingly, it's not the woman's house. Nope. It's another goddamn bar. Anyways, the car door did this cool trick. At the bar we talked to an interesting character, Grosvenor McCaffrey, a writer who was dishonorably discharged during the war for beating a poor woman to death for trying to rob him. We interview him, but don't get much out of him. Next we head over to Levin's Liquor. At the liquor store, we speak to the owner, Walter Robbins, who name drops McCaffrey as a suspect. So obviously, we go over to his apartment and find all the evidence linking him to the case. Damn, a lot of patterns seem to be emerging here. Anyways, McCaffrey sees us and starts to run. We tackle him, send him to the station. So what's our next stop? Well, Rawlings Bowling Alley, of course. Where else would we go? At the bowling alley, the suspect starts running, so you already know he isn't the murderer. Oh, and why did he run? Cause he was scared, of course. Never heard of a better reason to run from the police. We interview both guys, and I think you can already guess. We sentence McCaffrey and finish the case with praises from the captain. We get another flashback showing Cole's group having to pull back from a bridge as they start to get overwhelmed by Japanese soldiers. Cole is determined to stay on the bridge and keep fighting till the end, while Jack Kelso wants to save what's left of the group and retreat. Alright boys, this is the big one. All the patterns and conveniences all link up to this case. The LAPD has been receiving letters from an anonymous source. These letters are excerpts from Shelley, an English poet. The other detectives see these letters as just taunts from a random murderer, but Cole knows there's some kind of connection to the Black Dahlia killer. Reading through the first excerpt, we find out the killer has placed something at the fountain in Pershing Square. At the square we find two new clues: Elizabeth Short's social security card and another excerpt from Shelley. This is the only case in the game where you actually have to use the map. The killer has hidden clues at some of LA's biggest landmarks. So I didn't know the landmark descriptions give you the answer, so for the first excerpt I had to look it up on Google. The LA Noire wiki told me to go to the Hall of Records, and after reading the landmark description on the map, I realized I'm not much smarter than Hugo Muller. At the Hall of Records we find our next clue at the top of the chandelier, because of course the killer put it up there without anyone noticing. To get to the clues, Cole has to walk across the rope attached to the chandelier while maintaining his balance and not falling off. You do this by either pressing A or D when Cole starts to lean to the opposite side. I failed this one about 10 times and then I finally got across. Two more clues: Deidre Muller's watch, and the third before I even got to open the map, the ropes attached to the chandelier snapped, and the chandelier begins to break. We have to swing the chandelier close enough so Cole can jump. Sadly, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, so I didn't realize which side I had to jump to, so I also failed this one a couple times. Now that I understood how the clues work, I went to the LA Public Library, where we have to do a bit of rooftop parkour and some scaffolding on top of the library. 2 more clues: Antonia Maldonado's medallion and a 4th excerpt. So I have a bit of a problem with this excerpt. Listen to this bit. The wrecks beside of many a city vast. That sentence plus the religious medallion sure sounds a lot like the abandoned church, no? Just me? Okay, so our next location is the West Lake Tar Pits. Here we have to quickly make our way through the pit. Half of the platforms collapse as soon as you step on them, so you have to move quickly. Quick tip for this one: follow the wooden beams and don't look down the pit, just follow the beams. It'll get you through a lot quicker. At the Lonely Island in the middle of the pit, we get 2 more clues: Tarleton's missing shoe and the 5th exit. This one sending us to the LA County Art Museum. At the museum, we have to make it through a maze, which I of course struggled with. At the center of the maze, we find Celine Henry's missing ring and the 6th exit. This exit, yet again, makes no sense. Listen to this one: thrones, altars, judgment seats, and prisons. Oh, of course, this is the intolerance set and not the police station. What does the movie set have to do with prisons and judgment seats? Like, come on man, and at least pick good excerpts. So apparently there's a throne at the movie set. So we head over there. The set starts collapsing as we climb up, so we have to swing our way to safety once again. At the throne, we find our final 2 clues: Evelyn Summers' typewriter ring and the 7th and final exit. With only 1 landmark left to search, we go over to the Christ Crowns of Thorns. At the church, we finally get to meet the Black Dahlia killer, the man responsible for all the murders and planted evidence. And it's Garrett Mason, that random bartender in the red lipstick murder. Well, that's a boring choice for a serial killer, I won't lie. But anyways, we chase Garrett through the catacombs of the church. This chase is kinda boring, I won't lie. He just hides behind cover and shoots you. When you get too close, he starts running to the next wall to take cover behind. We shoot him down, and then...
Where's the press, Cap? I think Phelps and I should get a medal for this. This has got to be the case of the year, right? The case of the century when you think about it.
You finished?
Yes, Skipper.
Good. Because there won't be any press briefings or commendations.
What are you talking about? We got the werewolf, the guy who killed the Dahlia, killed all the other broads.
You got no one. Mason was a ghost.
Can you at least tell us why, Captain?
Mason is the half-brother of one of the most highly elected officials in this country.
How high?
Beyond the moon for mere mortals like us, Rusty. There'll be no more mention of him. The city owes you both, but there'll be no mileage in ever bringing this up again.
What's going to happen to the suspects in the cases, Captain? I won't be a part of that.
A bit of missing evidence at the grand jury. A procedural error here, a mistake there. They'll all be quietly let go. The DA knows how we've got to play it.
That's it?
I'm afraid it is. And I have some news for you, Phelps. No more rooting around in the entrails of cadavers and corpses for you. The head of vice has asked the chief for you. I'm reluctant to see you go to the glory boys of advice, but my hands are tied. Go home to that lovely wife of yours. Celebrate your promotion.
Yep, that's it. No press, no commendation, no further mention of one of the most infamous serial killers. This ending is perfect because it gives no praise or appreciation, which is exactly what Cole wanted. Just like the war, he saw the LAPD as his chance to shine and reach new heights. Instead, this case gets completely ignored, and he gets moved away from the desk he worked so hard to get promoted to in the first place. Truly an amazing way to leave our protagonist unsatisfied and unappreciated. This promotion sends us up to Administrative Vice. If you don't know what this is, The Vice Squad is a police division whose focus is stopping public order crimes like gambling, narcotics, prostitution, and illegal sales of alcohol. This department takes place up in Hollywood. Our new partner is Roy Earl, voiced by Adam J. Harrington. I don't even have to tell you what he starred in. Roy isn't as sheltered as Rusty, but isn't as friendly as Stefan. He just acts annoying throughout the whole department. Anyways, our first case is the Black Kaiser. We go to an apartment with two dead junkies, Cornell Tyree and Tyrone Lamont. Of course they named the black guy Tyrone. They had overdosed on government-issued morphine. At the apartment we find Black Kaiser cups with morphine taped to the bottom. Not a great way to hide morphine, may I add. So our first stop is the Black Kaiser food hub, where we find, you guessed it, more morphine. We also find some gambling tickets, so we go over to the owner of the gambling operation. Guess what we find at his place? You guessed it, more morphine. Next we go over to Jones's booking agency. Don't ask why, I don't really get it either. At the agency we get attacked by Jones's goons. We give them the old wallop, and guess what we find? You know what? I'm not even gonna say it. All this morphine seems to be coming from Rames Removals, so we go over there. At Rames Removals we find a ledger, potentially linking Polar Bear Ice Company to the crime. I then had to move some boxes to find frozen morphine, and then we head over to the ice company. At Polar Bear Ice, we come face to face with Lenny Finkelstein, half-brother of Mickey Cohen. Remember him? We chase Lenny through the factory, I don't really know what this place is. Anyways, we kill his goons, kill him, and end this morphine madness, or so Cole thinks. The Vice Department has received a tip from Freddie Calhoun, a junkie and snitch that wants to get out of town. He shares information on a citywide marijuana distribution ring. He asks for $50 for the tip, which would be around $650 today. Freddie rats out Juan Garcia Cruz as our main suspect, so we head over to his residence. That escalated quickly. Him and his friend unload all the bullets into the top part of the wall, like, just shoot down the entire wall, like, what are you doing? We give the gun bros a healthy dose of lead, and then investigate the house. Damn, I really wonder why they buy so much soup from 20th Century Market. Damn, who could have guessed that? Next stop, 20th Century Market. I interviewed the store clerk, or at least I tried to. It didn't go very well. They apparently get their soup from Parnell's Soup Factory, so that's our next stop. We get there, interview the owner, then we interview a delivery dispatcher. Then we come back at night and shoot up the factory. Just a logical escalation of events. So apparently all the suspects have had some kind of silver coins on them, and when we put them together we get the name of Masinke Metal. I haven't brought it up until now because it's just such a stupid way of giving us a final location. Like, why do these guys have silver coins on them? Why do the coins have the name of the metal foundry? I have no idea. But we have to finish the case somehow, so we go over to Masinke Metal Foundry. You know how this goes. Boring shootout scene. We take all of them down, then we meet with the boss, Victor Sanders, who has connections to the LAPD and gets let off the hook. Now this is a fun vice case. Professional boxer, Albert Hammond, wins a fight that he was supposed to throw. This costs people a lot of money, putting his life in danger. He runs away immediately after the fight, so Cole and Roy have to find him before the others. Hammond had been staying at Hotel El Mar. At the hotel room we find the name of Candy Edwards, Hammond's apparent girlfriend. I find her address and head over there. I find her in quite a sticky situation, so I give the man the old slosh, knocking him out cold. Candy basically gives no useful information, so we tail her in a surprisingly fun tailing mission. I can't believe it, they actually did it, they made a fun tailing mission. This has to be a world first, right? Anyways, we chase Candy throughout the city as she collects the money for Hammond. It all culminates at the bus depot where Hammond kills Candy and makes a run for it. Where to? Well, the Egyptian theater, of course. Where else would a killer run with the money? Before entering the theater, we find out that Hammond wasn't the one that killed Candy. It was Carlo Arquero, Hammond's manager, okay? He apparently wants to kill Hammond for not throwing the fight. Carlo and his goons go down with relative ease, then Hammond emerges. Cole lets him go free and have a second chance at life. Hammond leaves, and I get verbal abuse from the lieutenant for only getting one question right in the entire case. This case, as the name might suggest, is naked of anything interesting. Boring, slow, and uninteresting. This case tries to do what A Marriage Made in Heaven succeeded at, switching the case up from one to another type of crime. But unlike A Marriage Made in Heaven, which goes from hit and run to straight up murder, this one goes from drug overdose to house robbery. Not really an escalation. They even managed to ruin the fun tailing mission from the last case by trying to do it again, but failing at it miserably. Not even the suspects are interesting, they're just bland men and women who are harder to remember than the case itself. It doesn't matter, it's a DLC case anyway, we can just skip it. No one will notice. Strap in for this one, cause it's a doozy. A shooting at the 111 Club. At this club, we find more army surplus morphine, we interview the hostess, and we find out the club was owned by Eddie McGoldrick, a former Marine who fought at Okinawa. He was also on the SS Coolidge, the ship that was robbed of all the army surplus morphine. Next we go over to the Blue Room Jazz Club, where Elsa yells at us and doesn't give us much information, but asks for her and Cole to meet again. Uh-oh, I think I know where this is going. And meet again they do. Cole follows her cab and enters her place of residence, with Roy secretly watching from the side. Guys, I think Roy's about to do something bad. Alright, the next day we head over to the Mocambo Club. We come here to interview Mickey Cohen, who talks like a degenerate.
You got something to discuss, Roy, or are you gonna stand around beating the meat while my lunch gets cold?
Not much out of him either, so we go back to the police station to see who was on the SS Coolidge at the time of the robbery. A public bus gets shot at by one of Cohen's goons. We go over there, climb up the building, and take out the shooter. Why did this specific bus get shot at? Because the driver is Felix Alvaro, another former Marine who was on the SS Coolidge. I don't get much out of him, cause I'm terrible at interrogations. So where to next? Well, we go to meet the man himself, Jack Kelso. Unsurprisingly, he isn't very friendly with Cole, so we take him to the station and interrogate him. I surprisingly get all of the questions right, and then head over to the next shooting. We chase down the goons, kill them, and find a carbon copy of the SS Coolidge manifest with handwritten location details. Before going over to the next shootout, I found a newspaper in the alleyway where we kill the goons. The newspaper shows us a cutscene of the higher-ups of the LAPD stressing out about the recent scandals surrounding the department. Then Roy Earl enters the room, suggesting a new idea to get the LAPD out of the papers. He plans to expose a certain vice detective for cheating on his family with a certain German singer. Our next shootout location is the Hollywood Post Office. After clearing out the gunmen, we find a few victims, among who we find Walter Beckett, another Marine who was also on the Coolidge. Next we head to Mickey Cohen's meeting place. He drives away and a shootout ensues with his henchmen. We take out all of his gunmen, but Cohen gets away. Before leaving, we get called back to the station. Courtney Sheldon, a former field medic who fought on Okinawa, who was also on the Coolidge, requests an interview with Cole. In the interview room, he is accompanied by Dr. Harlan Fontaine. Courtney was the one who organized the morphine robbery. He planned to sell it back to the state and help all the other Marines earn money, although the morphine ended up being peddled to drug dealers. The trafficking went sour, and addicts started dying, as Sheldon attempted to stop supplying the stolen morphine for distribution. However, Courtney doesn't admit this in the interview. Instead, this happens.
Jack is not in this. He's a good guy.
You were Jack, Courtney. I don't care who goes to jail. I just want the morphine off the street.
What are you offering, Cole?
Don't be ridiculous, son. This man is gambling.
What's your offer?
Doctor, good to see you.
I'm conducting an investigation.
Upstairs in my office, now.
This man is about to confess.
As of now, you're suspended from duty, pending a fitness review.
What are you talking about?
You heard the man, Phelps.
Upstairs and face the music like the hero you were.
You certainly had us fooled, Detective.
Phelps, you're one of my favorite sons. You've broken this old man's heart.
Sir, what is going on here?
You're suspended, Phelps. Hand over your badge and gun.
Don't keep him waiting.
What is going on here?
Your wife's attorney has pictures of you and the German. Compromising pictures, lad.
She's pressing charges. You'll be formally charged with adultery. A criminal cannot serve as an LAPD officer, as I'm sure you're aware.
I don't understand.
How could you do it, lad? Your wife, your children, consorting with the enemy and a dope fiend at that. You're lucky the war is over. You'd be taken out and shot.
The department doesn't need this kind of publicity, Phelps. Hand over the gun, keep your head down until your board hearing. I forbid you to make any comments to the press. What the hell were you thinking?
And just like that, Cole loses everything he worked for. His wife kicks him out, he loses his badge, and his name is smeared in the newspapers. Cole gets demoted to the arson desk until his investigation concludes, moving down to the Wilshire division and losing his famous title as a great detective. Damn. All this for Elsa. Kinda reminds me of Tiger Woods. We start off this case with a shot of someone tampering with an insta-heat water heater. Or at least I think that's what they're trying to do. The cutscene kinda bugged. At the Wilshire Police Department, Cole gets ragged on by the other detectives, and then we get introduced to our new partner, Herschel Biggs, voiced by Keith... You know what? I'm not even gonna attempt that. He's voiced a lot of video game characters, from Spider-Man 2 all the way to World of Warcraft Legion. He's also the narrator in the beginning of the game. He's not too happy knowing that Cole is his new partner, but slowly throughout the cases he opens up and starts being more friendly. Biggs prefers to keep to himself. He had a difficult life, from his poor upbringing to his experiences during the First World War, subsequently causing him personal and emotional problems. He's lost many friends and comrades in combat, so he avoids becoming close to people, so if they die, it doesn't cause him any more trauma or sadness than what he's already experienced in his life. Anyways, our first arson case involves two burned down houses, the Stephens family and the Sawyer family. At the Sawyer house, we find the gas flow regulator valve, which has been tampered with. Both of these families had recently won a travel contest, but both having their houses conveniently burnt down. After a bit of useless travel and interrogations, we head over to the Insta-Heat factory. We find their employee list and look through 3 of their lockers. Next we locate and arrest 2 of them, Reginald Varley and Matthew Ryan, both having a criminal record, and both being linked to the house fires. Reginald Varley is wanted for murder. Don't really know how he got a job while on the run, but I guess that's LA for you. And Matthew Ryan for accidentally killing his family in a house fire. He installed a water heater in his own home, but due to the heater's faulty and unreliable design, a fire broke out, burning down his house and killing his family. After interrogating both of them, I have to choose which one to sentence, so obviously, I choose Reginald Varley. He lied in all of his answers and is also wanted for murder. Obvious choice, right?
How is it? No, just keep your mouth shut and listen to me for a second. How is it you can bring no less than 3 suspects into my station, conduct extensive interviews, sift through mountains of evidence with Lynch and Pinker, and still manage to charge the wrong fucking guy? I took a chance on you, Phelps. People said I was crazy, and you made me look like a jerk.
In the post-case cutscene, we see Cole and his squad burning down every Japanese house in the area. We see that all the other soldiers see him as a liability and bad luck. Kelso knows this war is about defeating the enemy, and not fighting allies, so he reprimands them. The opening cutscene shows us a man making origami cranes. Quite a lot of them, by the looks of things. Remember this room, as it will return later on. Another house fire. This one with the family inside. Yet another heater explosion, and yet another family that won the Elysian Fields travel contest. At this point the game runs out of ideas, so they send us to a different house fire. At this one we find a few angry locals, poor cement quality, and foundational structure of the whole house. Of course, our next stop is Elysian Fields. Here we speak to the CEO, Leland Monroe, a highly successful real estate tycoon with connections to several important and high-ranking figures. I only get one question right, but he gives me a list of flyer distributors. On the list we find Herbert Chapman, an arsonist from the previous case who I didn't mention because he wasn't important. Before going after Herbert, Cole goes back to the Blue Room. Here he meets with Roy. He threatens us to stop investigating Elysian Fields. Oh boy, I wonder how this is gonna end. After leaving, we go over to Herbert's apartment. He obviously isn't there. That would be too easy, of course, but his car still is. A rookie mistake. The car's trunk contains an Elysian Fields flyer and bullets. We see him across the street, so we chase after him. He jumps on the trolley, and probably the best car chase in the entire game ensues. We chase him until Biggs derails the trolley. Herbert goes down with one bullet. I guess our standard for criminals has gone down throughout the whole game. I get yelled at, probably because I got one question right in the entire case. And a cutscene follows as Elsa learns that she is to receive a large settlement in the death of a friend who'd name her as a life insurance beneficiary. When Cole learns Elsa's friend died on an Elysian Fields project, he convinces her to reject the settlement and get Jack Kelso, now an insurance investigator, to look into it. House of Sticks. This case begins in what I assume is the next day, as Elsa enters Jack's office, asking for him to investigate her case. Her case being that her friend, Lou Buckwalter, died on an Elysian Fields project when the roof collapsed on him. Elsa believes that his death isn't just an accident, but that it was purposefully caused by faulty construction material. Jack doesn't think much of her case, but decides to look into it anyway. This is one of 3 cases in the entire game where we get to play as Jack Kelso instead of Cole. He's basically the same gameplay wise, except for the fact that he doesn't have a partner, which I kinda think is a benefit. Jack decides to ask his boss about the case. That goes about as well as you might think.
It's a pretty generous payment, Curtis. I think I should look into it.
Is there anything wrong with the paperwork, Kelso?
No, there isn't, Mr. Benson.
I didn't think so. Pay the case out and get her off our backs.
I can't make her take the money,
Deal
sir.
with it, Jack. Do your fucking job.
Jack's first step is to go to an Elysian Fields development site. He finds a few notes and documents which are too complicated for me to care about, so Jack heads over to a nearby demolished building. He finds that the material used to build the house is not meant to be used for construction. He finds that the material is coming from Keystone Films. So what happens next? Well, obviously, Jack gets chased down by a bulldozer. I failed this chase about 10 times because I didn't realize that shooting at the bulldozer slows it down, even though it literally told me to do that. Jack outruns the bulldozer and does nothing about the worker that just chased him down and tried to kill him. He just gives him a weird look and moves on to Keystone Film. Here, Jack finds the same materials used at the building site. In a different part of the studio, he finds a film reel linking Leland Monroe, Curtis Benson, Harlan Fontaine, and a few others in this suburban conspiracy. After this, Jack gets threatened by his boss to force Elsa to accept the $20,000 payout. As you may have guessed, he doesn't do this. He instead goes to a second Elysian Fields development site. Here he gets baited into entering the house by a flickering light, gets ambushed, beaten, and kidnapped by Leland's goons. He escapes his kidnappers and drives back to Elsa's apartment, where he passes out.
So you're still carrying that Army 45, Cole?
In another flashback, we see Cole's squad heading towards a large cave, with the intent of torching it. On the way there, they get ambushed and one of their flamethrowers, whose name is Ira Hogaboom, runs into the cave by himself, setting it ablaze. A polite invitation. This case starts in a hospital, with Elsa looking after Jack. He starts speaking like a Discord mod.
You look lovely, princess.
After she leaves, Leonard Peterson enters the room. He offers Kelso a job as an investigator for the district attorney's office. Kelso agrees. After Jack leaves the hospital, he goes over to Curtis Benson's apartment. I didn't do very well in the interrogation, unsurprisingly. Curtis fires Jack, so logically Jack goes right back to his office to look for clues. Was no one notified by Benson that Jack is fired? At his office, our main man, Cole, shows up. He asks Jack for help solving the case, and Jack agrees. Jack decides to go to the Hall of Records to find out who are the investors of Suburban Redevelopment. He finds Courtney is listed as an investor, and then talks to him about it. Courtney says he gave the morphine to Harland, who then invested it into the Suburban Redevelopment Fund. Jack explains the situation to Courtney, who honestly might be the most clueless character in this entire game. Back at Kelso's apartment, he gets a phone call from Monroe, who offers him money to drop the case. He also invites him to his house. Damn. I really wonder how this is gonna go. Jack decides to go to Monroe's mansion. Just not in the way Monroe expected. He shoots down all of Monroe's goons in what might be the best shootout in the entire game, as Jack slowly shoots down Monroe's goons and makes his way through the mansion, kinda like that one GTA San Andreas mission. He takes down all of Monroe's goons, starts talking like a Discord mod again.
I don't normally shoot women, Princess.
Gets shot in the arm, not gonna lie, he kinda deserved that. Enters Monroe's office, shoots him in the leg, and then searches the room. He finds Monroe's payroll list and a bunch of other documents. The newspaper in the room shows us a cutscene of Courtney confronting Harland about the Suburban Redevelopment Fund. I'm sure you can guess how this goes. Back to Jack. Before leaving the room, he asks Monroe who kidnapped Elsa. I genuinely don't know when she got kidnapped, like, when did this happen? Did I miss something? Monroe accuses one of Harland's patients. This guy also started all the fires. He obviously isn't mentally stable, and does whatever Harland tells him to. Nicholson electroplating. This case starts off with a bang, literally. An industrial plant owned by Nicholson Electroplating explodes. Smoke starts rising into the sky. At the scene of the crime, we find an airplane part, laundry tag, spy camera, earring, a business card with the name Tomoko Okamoto, and an undeciphered message. We have to decipher the message, and as you may guess, it took me a while. I even looked up a video on how to do it. The message gives us an address. Before we head over there, we interview the owner of the plant, Fred Nicholson. Fred tells us why the plant exploded. A brilliant chemist named Oscar Hangstrom proposed a new process to chemically polish aluminum. However, the process was actually very unstable. While testing the new process, a massive explosion occurred, and Hangstrom was killed in the blast. We also find out that Tomoko had been a spy, working in the plant and recording everything with the spy camera. We head over to our apartment, we find a dead body in the fridge, and a retired LAPD pin. Next we head over to the laundry service. Here we get absolutely no useful information. I don't know who at Rockstar decided to make this place so loud.
I need an address for an Oscar Hangstrom.
Checking. No residential listing for anyone by that name, Detective. Sorry.
Thanks, man.
In the meantime, the airplane part had been identified, so we head over to Hughes Aircraft, the manufacturer of the part. At Hughes Aircraft, we interview the head of security, Vernon Mapes, who is a retired LAPD officer. That's interesting information right there. After looking through some useless information, we go back to the police station, where we get to examine some photos. One of the photos gives us a random house address, so of course we go over there and check it out. At the house, we find a passport belonging to Oscar Hangstrom. Once I looked through it, Mapes throws a molly into the house, setting it on fire.
I'm gonna molly him then.
Okay. I just got mollied. I think they mollied me.
I escaped the house with absolute perfect gameplay. Definitely didn't take me 2 tries to realize I have to open the window and not shoot at it. I chase Mapes back to Hughes Aircraft, kill a few random employees. I don't know why all the employees have guns. America, I guess. Then I guess I kill Mapes up on the building. Really couldn't tell from that distance. I surprisingly don't get yelled at by the captain. After the case ends, we get a cutscene of Elsa accusing Harland of participating in the Suburban Redevelopment murders. This, yet again, goes exactly how you'd expect. After he knocks her out, a man bursts into the office and strangles the doctor. He then takes Elsa and runs away. And now we make our way through the final case in the game. It's all been building up to this moment. The case starts us off with Jack as he's trying to find the arsonist who kidnapped Elsa. He travels to 3 different pest controls. At the first location, Rapid Exterminators, we find a newspaper which shows us Courtney Sheldon found dead from a drug overdose. Cole and Biggs find the body. At the same time, Roy arrives to the scene. Cole pulls out a gun and then threatens to kill the patrol officer if he lets Roy touch the body.
You finally lost it, partner. I have a pretty good idea why Sheldon's dead.
At the second location, Jack gets no information. And at the third one, named Westlake Pest Control, he finds out the arsonist lives at a bunkhouse at the abandoned Rancho Rincon. Now we cut to Cole. Him and Biggs are called in by Rusty to investigate the murder of Dr. Harlan Fontaine. Wait, I thought this wasn't the arson desk. Why are we investigating murder cases? Anyways, at the scene of the crime, we find documents showing that Monroe had been blackmailing Fontaine. Fontaine had lost control of his patient, and people started dying. We also find a newspaper depicting this as Monroe and Fontaine sit at a restaurant. Monroe starts to threaten Fontaine and tells him to keep his patients in check. We also find that all the houses built by the Suburban Fund were all built in the path of the planned freeway. This freeway, which is named Whitnall Freeway, was an actual planned freeway that was laid out in 1927, but was never fully finished. Anyways, back to the game. At the mansion, we also find the leftover morphine that the doctor had been using to drug his patients. We cut back to Jack as he arrives at the arsonist's house. It's a broken down, smelly, and decomposed mess. Jack ends up finding the origami room as well as a blueprint of the LA River tunnels. He finds a flamethrower inside the house, as well as the fact that this arsonist was also on Okinawa. Now back to Cole. We have to escort Jack throughout the city all the way to the river tunnels while the whole LAPD chases after him. We cut back to Jack once he arrives at the tunnels for our final part of this case. Jack and Cole enter the tunnels as Peterson stays behind and blackmails the chief of police. In the tunnels, Jack chases after the arsonist, who is equipped with a flamethrower, as dozens of people chase after him. Jack navigates through the complex tunnels and the rushing sewer water while also taking down the goons that are chasing the arsonist. In one of the rooms, I ended up finding a flamethrower, and it's about as useless as you'd expect. Jack makes it through the tunnels and finally comes face to face with our final antagonist, Ira Hogaboom, the flamethrower who ran in and torched the cave complex in one of the flashbacks. I don't really like Ira as our final culprit. This game built up so many villainous characters who end up not doing anything. Just use one of them instead. But instead we get all this build-up for an insane marine who ends up not doing anything meaningful except for killing what would have been an amazing final villain. He doesn't even fight back in the final confrontation, he just dies off screen. Anyways, back to the story.
Elsa! Are you alright? Get away from her!
It's alright, Cole. He doesn't want to hurt her. Ira was with us on Okinawa.
What? You know this guy?
Don't you remember me, Lieutenant? I remember you. No, I don't.
You ordered me to burn that cave, Lieutenant. That cave full of civilians. A hospital.
What is he talking about?
It was war. For God's sake, I can't be held responsible for everything that happened.
I don't blame you, Lieutenant. You helped me to help other people.
Ira lost his mind on Okinawa, Princess.
Sheldon asked the doctor to help me get back.
The doctor helped me to find my path. And I helped him to a better life.
Elsa's going to leave now, Ira. She will be all right. You've helped her, too. Get her out of here. Biggs will help. His exit is nearby.
Jack, I need this guy to make the case.
Hasn't this poor bastard given you enough? Get out of here now!
For God's sake, Jack! What are you going to do?
Don't cry, miss. Sergeant Kelso has come to help ease my way. I was proud to serve with you, Jack.
Get out of here, Cole!
We transition to another flashback. This one finally gives us backstory to why Hogaboom lost his mind on Okinawa. The cave that he was ordered to torch turned out to be a makeshift hospital for civilian citizens. Yura ended up killing all the civilians in the cave, which caused him to lose his mind. Back to the main story. Cole and Elsa reach a street grate above the rising water in the tunnel. Biggs opens up the grate and hauls Elsa and Jack up with the help of Cole. But just before Cole could jump up to safety...
Jump, Cole! Jump for it!
We cut to Cole's funeral. His wife and 2 daughters are in attendance, along with other previous partners. Roy Earl gives a eulogy at a closed American flag-draped casket with Cole's picture next to it. It is implied that Peterson insisted in his deal with the police chief that Phelps be exonerated of all previous accusations and wrongdoings. In the end, Cole got what he wanted, a clean image and a footprint in LAPD history. But at what cost? Cole always chased justice, but got caught up in trying to save his own image, which ended up with the mayor, the chief, and Roy all getting out of the situation unscathed. In the end, was justice truly served?
Who never lost his faith in the LAPD and the system.
Fine. You belittle his memory.
Elsa.
Get out of my way, Jack. You call yourself his friend.
A detective who fought to expose the evil corruption of the murderous Dr. Fontaine and the rapacious property tycoon Leyland Monroe.
Go to her. Will you, Herschel?
A reformer who
You were never his
recognized the
friend,
need
Jack.
to remove the odd bad apple from a department
right.
made up of good men.
Herschel?
A man who never gave up.
Yeah, Jack.
Who continued
never
to
his
fight
enemy.
the good fight.
I think you knew that, Jack.
The fight that cost him his own life. A good husband. A good father. And may I say, a good friend.
LA Noire is a difficult game to rate. It mostly falls flat in the action and combat department, aside from a couple fun shootouts and chases, but it absolutely knocks it out of the park in investigations, interrogations, world building, and attention to detail. Every character has fully fledged backstory, almost every case perfectly builds up to the final villain reveal, every clue has a voice line linked to it, every partner has their own personality and stories to tell, and the actors absolutely smash it out of the park in almost every scene. If you come into this game looking for a fast-paced police shootout game, then you'll be severely disappointed. But if you come in looking for a slow, grindy detective game with a few action scenes sprinkled in, then you'll enjoy it as much as I did. Thank you to everyone who watched this video all the way to the end, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.
'Cause I love to kill the things I love. The look